the news that's been broadcast about his walk from Rockingham, North Carolina to Washington, D.C. The news has highlighted the fact that he's making this walk to give witness to the fact that Medicaid is in danger by some people in the Congress. They want to cut it, and he's standing for his daughter and for many, many others who would be hurt if Medicaid is cut. He's bringing the witness of Christ to the kind of world that God wants us to live in. And so I'm going to introduce him now. We have your scripture on the screen. Do you want it read now, or do you want to read it, or how do you want to do that? All right, let's go to Genesis 1, Genesis 22, verse 1 through 18. Now it came to pass after these things that God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham, and he said, Here I am. Then he said, Take now your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. So Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey and 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son. And he split the wood for the burnt offering and arose and went to the place of which God had told him. Then on the 3rd day, Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place far off. And Abraham said to his young men, Stay here with the donkey, the lad and I will go yonder and worship, and we will come back to you. So Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac his son, and he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and 2 of them went together. But Isaac spoke to Abraham, his father, and said, My father, and he said, Here I am, my son. Then he said, Look, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering. So the 2 of them went together. Then they came to the place of which God had told him. And Abraham built an altar there and placed the wood in order. So he bound Isaac his son and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. So he said, Here I am. And he said, Do not lay your hand on the lad or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. Then Abraham lifted his eyes and looked, and there behind him was a ram caught in a thicket by its horns. So Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up for a burnt offering instead of his son. And Abraham called the name of the place, The Lord Will Provide, as it is said to this day, In the mount of the Lord it shall be provided. The angel of the Lord called to Abraham a 2nd time out of heaven and said, By myself I have sworn, says the Lord, because you have done this thing and have not withheld your son, your only son. Blessings I will bless you, blessing I will bless you, and multiplying I will multiply your descendants as the stars of the heaven, as the sand which is on the seashore, and your descendants shall possess the gate of their enemies. In your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. This is the word of God for us, the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Amen. I asked James, Pastor James, if he would just tell us a little bit about his journey, why he is on this journey, and you know, what inspired him, how did he hear God's call to make this journey, why is he doing it, what's he hoped to do, and what kind of blessings have come to him along the way. He doesn't have a prepared sermon or anything. He's just going to speak from his heart, like he would get up and talk to you in your living room about what has transpired these last several weeks. You left a week ago this last Friday, so it's been now 16 days? 16 days. Okay, so, and you can see he wasn't planning to come to church because he's still got his walking clothes on. So, you know, but I was able to convince him he would have a receptive audience here. So, Pastor James.
We'll start a little bit about myself. I was never supposed to be a preacher. I was tricked into the ministry by God. I was raised up, I'm going to tell you my background. I was raised up, my dad was a retired Navy. I was born in Charleston, South Carolina. We moved around a lot. I was a very small child. When I graduated high school, I weighed 98 pounds. So you can imagine a 98-pound fella, how many times I was picked on. I was bullied. Had very low self-esteem. I was very shy. I didn't like speaking out. I wouldn't speak out in public. My dad had always raised me to be the kind of person you just stay behind the scenes. You don't really get out front. You stay back in the back. You don't get noticed, and that way people leave you alone. So ministry was never in my plans. I had people throughout my life. I went to church. I was raised up in church. Whenever I went into the service, I had people tell me I've been called in ministry, which I told them, you know, pretty much I said, if God told you, then he can tell me himself. And until he tells me, I'm not going to listen to him. I guess when I was about 30, I was teaching Sunday school in the church, and I was church hurt. Now I'm going to tell you that's the worst kind of hurt there is when a church hurts you. I left the church and I didn't go back to church for about 9 years until a Methodist minister, Preacher Floyd, she didn't give up on me. She kept coming back and inviting me back to church, and she continued coming back until I finally said, fine, I'll go, just to get her to leave me alone. So that started it off. Me and my wife, we joined the church. She started sending me, told me to go to lay speaking classes. I'm sure y'all know what that is. I told her I didn't want to go to nothing that had speaking in it. And she said, oh, well, you don't have to speak. You just go and you learn about the Methodist history. You're a history buff. You love history, so you want to really enjoy it. So I went. Never had to speak for several years. She never asked me to speak because she knew that I was the kind of person, if they would have asked me to speak in church, I would quit church and go to another church. I had done that. I had a track record of quitting just because I was asked to do something. And that's not a good thing. I'm not endorsing that because God will catch you. So I continued going to her church, and then 9 years ago, my wife became pregnant. We had been trying for several years to have a child, so it was a blessing. And my wife got sick in her second month of pregnancy, and the doctors thought that she had a cold, so they said, you know, don't worry about it, it's just a cold, it'll go away on its own. Later we found out that it had been a rare virus that she had contracted and it attacked the brain of Lauren Faith. faith was born early, 28-week premature. She weighed 1 pound 11 ounces. She wasn't much bigger than a Barbie doll, a little tiny thing, but she was a blessing. You know, they tried to get us to abort, but we said, listen, if God gives us that child, you know, that's His child, we'll raise her up, we'll use her for His glory. Now that woke me up a little bit. It got me to thinking. It slowed me down because I was very busy. Me and my wife had a business. So it slowed me down enough to get to thinking and really seeking what God wanted me to do in what direction. It didn't slow me down enough, so a couple of years later, I had to have surgery, and I had a third of my lung removed. And that kind of really slowed me down because I had 2.5 months where I couldn't do nothing but sit in the couch and lay on the couch and read the Bible and listen to Him. Because you can only listen to Him when you're in that position. But my daughter, she had died in a brain surgery. She was about 8 months old. They did brain surgery. She had a cyst on her 4th ventricle, hydrocephalus, causing her head to swell. The fluids weren't flowing out of her brain. So she did, they did this surgery. And when they went to decompress the cyst, she died. The surgeons worked on her for over 8 minutes. And finally gave up on her. They did everything science could do. So the next time I saw my baby, she was packed in ice. Because they had to freeze her and thaw her up over a period of 3 days. So she looked like she was dead because she was all purple looking. You know, but that's when, you know, God had spoke to us, you know, and He told us, that we had promised that she would be used for His glory. And He reminded us of that. So me and my wife, we sat down and we prayed and we said, God, if this is your will, you know, we're fine. We told you that it was your child and she's going to be used for your glory. So He gave her back.
Praise the Lord.
Now, so for all of these things and for all that I went through, I still ran because I had my whole running notebook, is what I called it. I went through the Bible and took all the scriptures that justified my actions for not being obedient to God. So with this child, though, I began seeing God work through her. She can't talk. She can't walk. She don't eat. But she has to be fed through a feeding tube into her small intestine. She's on a special diet. It's like a fasted diet because of her seizures. She was having over 100 seizures a day. So the diet put her into a fasting mode. It was come up with by a physician, by a doctor who was a Christian, and out of the scripture where there was the disciples, they couldn't heal a boy that had epilepsy. He was having seizures, and Jesus told him, and He said this kind of comes out through prayer and fasting. So this doctor, he started studying this and found out that there was a connection between fasting and seizures. So she came off of several of the medicines she was on, and now she can go 3 or 4 weeks without a seizure. But what was really amazing when God showed me one day, He said, now there have been 4 people saved through this child. She's never spoke a word. She's never said anything. She's never done nothing. How many excuses in your little notebook do you have left? And I really didn't have any excuses left. So I answered the call in the ministry. Now, one thing I want you to know, God ain't gonna give up on us. It don't matter how bad we think we are, or how unworthy, or how we don't think that we can because of our past experiences, because of things we've been through. God don't care about none of that stuff. He can use everything that we've been through for His glory if we allow it. So I accepted the call. I went to licensure school. I preached for 8 months when our preacher was sick, and he had cancer, lung cancer. And he passed away on Epiphany. And that day God came to me and pretty much spoke to me. The district superintendent, he called me and said, now, if you would just give me a month or two to try to find someone to take to church. I know you've been running, you've been doing a good job, but at that time when he told me that, my heart kind of, it just dropped. I found myself, and I told my wife, I said, I hope he don't find nobody. I said, God has shown me that I am able. It don't matter what everybody said. It don't matter that I'm not a good speaker. God is going to provide a way. He'll give me the words to say. So they come back, and later he appointed me at the church. And I've been in the church for the last, this is my 2nd year. So that being said, you got a little bit of story of Laura. You got a little background of me. A few weeks ago, I was preaching that same scripture that we read. And I was making a connection how, we all want to live by faith. We want to say that we're very faithful people. I always said, I thought I had a whole lot of faith. But do we know God the way that Abraham knows God? God just spoke to Abraham, and Abraham, he just come right out and said, here I am, Lord. He knew God was speaking to him. He didn't question. Many times when God speaks to us, we want to stand around and find all these different excuses or find out who else was speaking to us, or, but God wants us to know Him at the same level that Abraham knew Him. God wants to be our friend. He wants us to have this relationship with Him. And so He spoke to Abraham, and He said, Abraham told him, He said, here I am, and then God gives him these crazy instructions that says, go and take your only son that you have left, because I've already sent your other son away. He said, take this only son you have and go take him to a place I'm going to show you and make him into a sacrifice to me. And it just struck me because Abraham just did it. He didn't go tell his wife. He didn't make plans. The only plans he made was he got up, he cut some wood, and he went. And that was another thing that amazed me. Abraham was a rich man. He wasn't a poor man. He had servants. Why did Abraham cut his own wood? He had all these people to do this for him. He even had 2 guys that went with him. He took with him to this place that God was going to show him. So here Abraham, a rich man, taking off on a trip. It's going to take at least a week round trip. Don't even tell nobody. Don't tell his wife where he's going or what he's doing. Don't get permission. And he goes. You see, so I was telling my congregation, I said, Abraham had to cut his wood. I said, how many times do we want to say we're living by faith and we pray to God, we say, God, I've got all this faith and I know you're going to take care of everything and you're going to do all this stuff for me. And we go to the altar and we say, God, I'm going to leave this at the altar with you, and we get up and we leave, and we come back a week later and we say, well, God didn't do nothing, so apparently it ain't His will. But yet we don't do anything on our part. We don't cut the wood. See, God calls us to Abraham. We need to go out and it's fine to trust in God, and it's fine to have faith in Him because He's a faithful God. But sometimes we have to do our part. If you want Him to, when I used to drink, and I used to go and I pray, I said, God, take drinking from me. I don't want to drink no more. but then I still go around the same people. I would leave the church, I'd get around into the same places. I didn't do anything. I didn't do my part for God to take that drinking from me. I just kept staying, and then whenever I keep drinking, then I'd say, well, it ain't God's will. Apparently, He wants me to keep drinking. And that ain't the case. Sometimes God just wants us to cut our own wood. So I'm preaching this sermon, and by the time I got finished, God spoke to me, and He said, when are you going to start practicing what you preach? Because like I said, I always thought I had a whole lot of faith. But I've got this daughter that I've always been praying, you know, with these things going on and these cuts in Medicaid, and my wife and I would pray that God's going to change the politicians' hearts. And we got faith that He's going to fix everything for us. But what am I doing other than praying? You know, how much wood am I cutting? I'm cutting off somebody else. I'm trying to burn wood that somebody else already cut for me. And I don't want to cut my own wood because we're lazy. I'm lazy. It's a whole lot easier to sit back and wait on some cut, just take someone else's wood. So He gave me this idea, this vision, to walk, to try to raise awareness for my daughter. But I said, fine, I'll do it. I said, I'm going to go. You know why I said I want to go so easy? Because my wife wasn't going to let me go. See, I knew that when I told her, because of this business we had, I knew that she was going to say, you ain't leaving me here to run this business by myself. We've got a daughter that's 24-hour care. I'll have to run the business, plus I have to attend to her for the 6 hours between the nurses come. She said, there ain't no way you going. I knew this wasn't going to happen, so I got all this trust up. I mean, I got plenty of faith now. You know, you got plenty of faith when you think you got a way out. So I'm like, fine, I'll do it. And I just waited to the right time to let my wife tell me that I wasn't going, because I knew it would take a couple of weeks. That was on a Sunday evening. Monday, we were going out of town. Tuesday, something come on the radio and talking about the health care and the votes. And I told my wife, I said, well, maybe I ought to just walk to Washington then and just try to talk to Lauren. And she said, when are you leaving? And I knew then that God was in every bit of it. You see, because I said it as a joke. I didn't have any intentions of walking. But you see, God had a different plan. He had a lot different plan. So she had an appointment with Lord Faith on Wednesday. Thursday, I was supposed to have Thursday to be able to get prepared so I could leave Friday morning. I had about 45 minutes whenever she called to the store because she got tied up. So I had about 45-minute preparation. I read a little bit I could read on the internet about drinking water and about changing your shoes. And I left out on Friday morning 2 weeks ago, 7 o'clock. I didn't tell nobody I was going. For the simple reason, 2 reasons. If I changed my mind, I didn't want to get up told a whole bunch of people, and then I'm going to look crazy. And and the other reason, I just didn't want them to try to talk me out of it, because I had several people along the way that said, we were wondering what kind of crazy person would walk to Washington in 100-degree weather. They said, that's just crazy. So those were the 2 reasons I didn't tell them. I didn't even tell I tried to tell my DS, my boss. I called him, but his phone didn't work. He didn't have his answer machine turned on, so I told his secretary, she didn't have a chance to tell him. He found out from his boss. The bishop called him on Monday morning and said, I just seen a press release where you got a preacher that's walking to Washington. How come you didn't tell me about this? And he said, well, he didn't tell me. I didn't know about it. So I'm probably going to get fired when I get back. So y'all keep praying. I need y'all to pray that something good comes out of this. Or I may not have a job when I go back to Rockingham. But so I'm walking. The first day, really great. 30-some odd miles, no problem. I'm all hyped up. You know, it's new. It's great. I got my freedom. I ain't got to worry with nothing else. I don't even have to answer the phone because they can't prove if I was in a spot where they could ring or not, or where I could hear it. So I'm just walking and enjoying and relaxing. The next morning I wake up, it wasn't great no more. I was tired. My legs hurt, my feet hurt. And at that point I could have very easily just walked the other direction and been back home. But I didn't. I kept hearing my wife in my back of my head, and she would always tell everybody, oh, well, he's stubborn enough, he'll make it. If anybody's going to make it, he will. So I didn't want to let her down that soon anyway. But now the second day was really hard. The second day you walking, you pushing through. You got Satan in the back of my mind saying, you know, why are you doing this crazy? Ain't nobody care, nobody's going to listen to nothing you got to say. This is just stupid. It's hot out here. It's 100 degrees. You keep walking, you're going to pass out and fall dead on the side of the road. I mean, he's telling me all of these things, and then when I finally get to Sanford and I take my shoes off, I got a blister about that big around, about the size of an egg, right in the ball of my foot. Now that was every reason to quit right there. I was like, well, that's it, I'm done. And it happened to be that a friend of mine who was retired from the military, he's also a pastor. He retired from the Rangers last year. You know, he was in Rangers and all of this stuff, so he could say, oh, well, just take moleskin and put around it. He said, if it busts, just put super glue on it. I said, all right, fine. So the next morning, I dread waking up. That was a Sunday morning. I had every reason why I should have been in church preaching instead of out walking on the street with a big old blister on my foot. And about a couple of hours into the walking, I felt this blister bust, so I had to put super glue on. Amazingly, super glue works wonders. I mean, you put a coat of it on there, and it's just like skin. You know what I mean? I didn't even feel the blister no more when I was walking on it. So I'm still walking, and this whole time God is tearing me down. You know, we have to get it all weaker sometimes. It don't matter how much faith you think you have. Sometimes God's got to get you just that much weaker to make you, because we're prideful people. You know, we think we know a little bit too much sometimes. So when he tore me down in the first few days, he was able to work on me and turn me back into what he wanted me to be instead of what I was. I mean, because all the while I still really don't have a clue why I'm walking other than to raise awareness. Nobody's really talking to me. There's not a whole lot of people, but just a handful that really stop and say anything. God's really got me out on my own. And then when I went into Raleigh on Monday, and they had these TV cameras there and all these people, you know, and that's whenever it really hit me. God said, you know, this is something bigger. It ain't about you walking. He said, there's a whole lot more going on that you don't know about. So that kind of encouraged me. You know, because I realized then that he was doing stuff, I just still don't know what he's doing exactly. May not ever know what he's doing. So I felt real good on Sunday, and then the next day I woke up to leave Raleigh, and I'm going up the street, and they got these 4 lanes, so every time I look up for 20 miles, every half a mile there's a sign that says wrong way, wrong way, wrong way, and you hit there, you still walking, but every time you open your eyes, you see. So then, you know, the devil starts attacking you again. You know, God already showed you something bigger than you, but you still have Satan with that one last effort to try to tell me that I was going the wrong way. And I'm like, well, God, is this you telling me I'm going the wrong way? Or is this Satan? So there was this struggle for a whole day of walking. I had this struggle inside of me as to what am I doing? Everybody's already telling me I'm crazy. What am I doing? And this is, you know, and I could have probably quit then again. But the next day he sent a minister to me. My friend Paul came to walk with me that day and ministered to me and helped me get everything in perspective, because as ministers, we need ministers to minister to us more often than not, because a lot of times we don't get that. So he came and helped get me straight through that day. And ever since then, I haven't had any more questions for God, because God has been showing me everything that he was trying to do, or everything that he wanted me to do. And my job was to just be obedient. Whenever God says, calls us and says, James, my job ain't to question, it's just to say, here I am, Lord. And so that's exactly what I've done. I've walked the entire way. I met some wonderful people along the way. I met people that most people would be scared of, and those are some great people. You know, God put all kind of folks ahead of me. He put all kinds of things ahead of me. He was going before me, he was going with me, and he was going after me. And I knew that. So I didn't fear anyone that came up to me. I mean, there was one fellow in particular that Paul was with me that day, and this Hispanic fellow, Mexican guy, he drove up with all these tattoos, both arms covered with tattoos, little teardrops all down his face, and he looked like gold teeth, and he looked like one of the guys off of the TV program where they, you know, so, but he was the one that stopped and said, hey, what's the matter with y'all? Is everything okay? You need a ride? You know, and people stereotype a whole lot of people a whole lot of time, but God moves through each and every one of us. It don't matter what kind of stereotype people have. It don't matter how much of a Ishmael you think you are. It don't matter how much of an outcast you think you are. God can take all of that and use it for His glory, if we allow, if we are obedient to His word. And that's a key thing, is to be obedient and to live by faith. But it ain't about the faith that we have. God don't care how much faith we have. It's how much do we understand how faithful He is to us. Because His faithfulness to us is what really matters. How much we say we have faith, it really, until it's tested, we can't even say we got faith. And it continues to be tested. Abraham was tested many times through his life. Everybody knew Abraham was a man of faith. But God still come back at that last minute, that last final test, and said, you go take your only son that you waited for all those years, lay him on the altar for me. And Abraham was willing to do it with no questions asked. So I walked for my daughter to raise awareness for the things going on, because a lot of people didn't understand Medicaid. As a daddy, I walked as a daddy for my daughter. But as a pastor, I walk for every other person out there that depends on Medicaid. Because we were called as Christians, we're called to take care, to be good stewards of everything that God created. And it ain't just trees and grass. He wants us to take care of every human being out there. Regardless of who they are, or what they look like, or regardless of whether they can say thank you or not say thank you. I mean, there's a lot better scripture. I used that scripture this morning because that's a scripture that started all of this with my journey. I mean, there's a lot in the Bible. If you go home and you read your Bible, you'll see all through the Bible, God has scripture upon scripture telling us to take care of the widows, to take care of the children, take care of the people that can't take care of themselves. Isaiah 58, prime example. I fast a lot. But God tells us in that fast, what do we do to fast if you're only doing it for you? He said, is this not the fast that I demand for you to go out and take care of people that can't take care of themselves? So, well, next time I fast, it'll be a little bit different, I'm sure. Because a lot of times I fast for myself, for my own spiritual maturity. But God's saying, forget all those fasts. Don't matter how good of a Christian you are, how good of a person you think you are, if you're not out here in the streets, taking care, feeding the hungry, giving clothing the naked, speaking up for the people and standing up for people that can't stand up for themselves, it don't matter how much fasting you do, God ain't in it. But if we get behind it and we do what God says, He said He'll brighten all our days like that.
Say a little bit about the phone call that was encouraging from William Barber.
Oh, yeah.
Tell people who William Barber is.
Oh yeah, well, William Barber is over the NAACP in North Carolina, which is one of the largest chapters in the United States. Now, when I was walking last week, I got a phone call, and you know, they started trying to tell me to set up times, and at first I'm thinking it's a prank phone call. But later on that evening, they said, we'll call back at 4 o'clock if that's fine. And I said, well, no, 4 o'clock probably ain't good. I'll probably still be walking, probably have to be 6 or 7. So they put me through on the phone. About that evening, the person called and they said, we need to stay on hold for William Barber, Reverend Barber. So I'm waiting, and it went through about 5 times before they finally, he answered the phone, and he told me how much he appreciated what I was doing, because his daughter had hydrocephalus when she was born. And it was only by God's grace that his daughter just finished college, and she can walk, she can communicate. But he said health care is not afforded to everybody. And he said he really appreciated what I was doing. He asked me if I needed anything, needed any help, because we all, as Christians, we've all got to work together. You know, I was a history major in school. I learned all about the Civil Rights Movement, so I understood exactly where he was coming when he told me. It takes him, because he told me, he said, I just wanted to tell you this, thank you, because tomorrow I'm going to go to jail, and I'll probably be in jail for about 2 weeks. And he said, and I said, well, if you're going to jail, why are you going to do whatever it is you're doing? Just don't do it. But that's when he said it takes all of us. He said, I'm doing the same thing you're doing. He said, I'm just going from a different angle.
Just so people know, William Barber was just arrested in front of, I think it was Mitch McConnell's office to protest the health care that he's trying to get through to cut in Medicaid. And so William Barber is someone who, he's done this a lot, let's just say. And he comes at it from this angle. And he's saying that God needs everybody to bring attention to what God's will is. People that do it his way and people that do it Pastor James' way.
And I got all respect for him doing it his way, but I'm not going to jail. You know, I feel like we can do this without the jail. My wife won't appreciate me going to jail. She may leave me there. But you know, it does take all of us. It takes every voice. You know, it takes everyone who's a Christian to stand up and say, we have got to do what's right for these people. It takes everybody that's got to do it in a way to where they're heard, to where they can make a difference. You know, I have nothing but respect for him. He's been to jail several times, and he's going to keep going to jail until somebody hears him. And that's the way he, you know, God has told him. I read a couple of his sermons, and he really is a real big advocate for social justice. And we as Christians should also be very big advocates for social justice. Because all through the Bible, through the Old Testament, all through the New Testament, almost every chapter, probably almost every book of the Bible, I know every book's got something in it about social justice. Probably every chapter, if you read around it the right way, it all deals with social justice. Jesus spoke specifically. He said the widows, he said the orphans, and these are people that can't speak for themselves. And that's what we have got to learn to do, is be obedient to God, be faithful to God, but most of all, we've got to cut our wood. Because it don't matter how much faith we got, we can't count on him to do it all for us if we're not willing to stand up for what he's told us to do.
Thank you. Just a couple other things for you to be aware of. tomorrow morning, Pastor James